It's the Metro on WDET, broadcasting live from the Mackinac Policy Conference. I'm Robyn, Vincent. Michigan picks its next governor in November, and the Democratic frontrunner is Jocelyn Benson. Benson made her name as the Secretary of State when she refused to overturn Michigan's 2020 election, even when armed protesters showed up to her Detroit home while she decorated a Christmas tree with her 4-year-old son. The Profiling Courage Award followed. So did the Presidential Citizens Medal. Now, she wants to replace Gretchen Whitmer in a state that voted for Donald Trump just 18 months ago. Her path got easier last week when independent Mike Duggan dropped out. It got harder when her own Democratic Attorney General ruled she'd broken state campaign finance laws, launching her bid, and when the Trump Justice Department sued her for Michigan's voter rolls. We had about 15 minutes to find out what all that means. I want to start with some recent political news. Mike Duggan dropping out last week. Now, he pointed to low polling. Some of his voters, though, we're talking moderate Dems and independents, they say they're tired of both parties. How do you actually pull those voters in?
Yeah. Well, first, I'm really grateful for the leadership that Mr. Duggan has brought the city where I live, Detroit, and grateful for his comments as well on the importance for us all to work together, which I wholeheartedly agree. We do have to ensure we recognize we're all one Michigan and figure out how to collaborate and work across the aisle. It's something I've done as Secretary of State, working to transform our branch offices, even with a divided legislature, because at the end of the day, we all ultimately want the same things, I think. A state that's thriving, an economy that's growing, and a Michigan that's affordable for all. So this is, for me, my fourth statewide campaign. And what I've been able to do every time I've been on the ballot is ensure we're building a coalition that represents people all across the state. It's why I won by 14 points in 2022, including in 3 counties that no other Democrat won, because I show up, I listen, I recognize that not any party has all the right ideas, but together we can come up with the best solutions. And then I actually get things done. And I think, again, no matter how someone may affiliate themselves, an independent, Republican, or Democrat, we all want leaders who will just move the needle, improve our lives, drive down cost, increase well-paying jobs. And that's my goal as governor. And I hope that we can build a bipartisan coalition across the state that won't just enable us to win in November, but govern effectively together.
So listening is really key for you.
And results, getting things done.
Okay. Yeah. So beyond the listening and then pushing policy forward, I'm wondering if there's a specific Democratic orthodoxy you might be willing to break to win some of those voters over.
Yeah, I do think, the soul of the Democratic Party is really about ensuring that every voice is heard and that everyone has a seat at the table. And I do hope and believe that's something all of us can support, because we're better when we listen to each other and when we hear each other and when we see different perspectives. And I've always focused, and I think this is the focus also of the Democratic Party, of saying, like, who's not at the table, who should be, and how do we make sure we are? That's why I've focused on voting and democracy throughout a lot of my professional career, because that's the way in which we ensure that everyone has a voice and access to power. But I think beyond that, I recognize that everyone ultimately wants to live in a state where their loved ones are happy and healthy and safe, and able to live nearby and thrive, where seniors can retire with dignity, where our young people can grow up and then stay here. And I see this as a mom of a 9-year-old little boy. It is not partisan to want your kids to stay in Michigan and to build their families and their life here as well, right? It's what we all want. So I think more than breaking an orthodox, recognizing on a higher level that we all want the same things. And we all may have different ideas and perspectives of how to get there, and that's a good thing. I actually think being a purple state is our strength, because it requires us to listen together, work together, and actually through that we come up with better solutions than we would if we were just focused on what's best for one party or one perspective.
So in other words, there is more room for ideas and more opportunities in your eyes to come to the table. I want to think a little bit more about your work right now as Michigan's top elections officer. I'm wondering, does the fight to protect Michigan's elections feel different to you now than it did in 2020? I mean, back then it was armed protesters at your house. Mm-hmm. You mentioned your son, and I realized that, his safety was paramount at that moment for you.
Yeah.
Now it's the Trump DOJ suing you.
Yeah.
It's Republicans calling for federal monitors at the polls. So it's coming from inside the government rather than outside of it.
Mm-hmm. I would say, what we saw in 2020 was the beginning, not the end, of what has been a multi-year coordinated effort to try to not just, do away or dismantle democracy and question it and sow seeds of doubt, of mistrust in a system that we all can rightfully believe in, but really to also exhaust us, to make us feel that our voices don't matter, to make us feel small. And when you look at the weaponization of the Justice Department today, going beyond the bounds of the law to try to demand that state officials turn over private information of voters or threaten local election officials and say, give us your ballots. It's trying to create this precedent of dampening our own power, our own autonomy, to say no, to say the law does not allow you to demand the private information of voters. And as a Secretary of State and ultimately as governor, my job will be to stand in the way, to be the guardrail, even if armed protesters come to my home, as they did in 2020, to say you're not allowed to break the law. You're not allowed to send federal troops to our election polls. That's illegal. And it's in this moment that state officials and our court system are critical components of standing up to anyone, even if it is the Justice Department, even if it is the President of the United States, who would try to break the law to make us feel small and like our voices don't matter. So that has been the work since 2020. It has escalated since then. But I, like many, are, I think, more ready than ever to continue to ensure we prevail, as we have both in court and at the ballot box, at protecting democracy against anyone who would try to dismantle it.
How do you create that fine line that a lot of leaders right now, Democratic leaders, are trying to walk when it comes to President Trump? It's about advancing policy, but staying off the radar. I mean, we've heard that from multiple Democratic leaders. I don't think that Governor Gretchen Whitmer has come out explicitly to say that, but certainly I think that's what a lot of people have gathered, is that for her, it's about walking a fine line. Mayor Mary Sheffield has essentially said that. How do you do that?
Well, I'll start by saying I am not and have never been afraid to stand up to anyone, whether it's the President of the United States or anyone else, who would try to stand in the way of the safety, the rights, the freedoms of our citizens. And when we see also the chaotic economic decisions that he's making, that's driving up the cost of just about everything, from gasoline prices to energy costs and all the rest, we need a governor who is unafraid to stand up on behalf of our citizens to anyone, even the president, who would try to abuse their office and harm our people. So that's, to me, priority number one. Now, I'll also work with anyone at the federal level or anywhere else who would try to help me reduce costs, who would try to help me increase access to well-paying jobs, who would try to help me grow democracy. And that's what I've done as Secretary of State. We worked across the aisle here in Michigan to ensure we're transforming our branch offices, because at the end of the day, as we were talking about earlier, we all kind of want the same things: a government that works well, that saves us money, that makes our life easier, that's not an obstacle course to deal with. So I think there are ways to find common ground, to actually work together with anyone if you're being data-driven and focused on doing right by the people you represent. But you also have to have the moral authority and courage to stand up to anyone who would get in the way of those same principles.
I want to think about the fact that you are a Detroiter.
Yeah.
Detroit's population just ticked up for the first time since the 1950s. The city is still recovering from bankruptcy. What would a Benson governorship deliver for Detroit that the Duggan-era City Hall and Whitmer's Lansing didn't?
Well, I'll say this. I think, like Detroit, there are cities all across our state that have enormous potential to continue to grow. And I'm thinking not just about Grand Rapids, which has also seen significant population increases, but Muskegon, Flint, Saginaw, Benton Harbor. So I'm eager to work with local officials and mayors all across the state to find out ways that they can be free to generate more revenue, free to work in partnership with us to ensure their public schools are providing an excellent public education. And as a citizen and resident of Detroit right now, I'm really excited about working with Mayor Sheffield, who I've known for 20 years and is a tremendous leader. I think I will have her back with whatever she needs. And I've said that repeatedly throughout both her campaign and now her time as mayor. And I think what you will see with her and I is a real sisterhood of of two people working together who both live in Detroit, and I will continue to live in Detroit as governor, which I think is important as well. So that through that, we're identifying ways we can increase safety of our communities, reduce gun violence in the city and other cities throughout our state, improve our public education system, working with Dr. Vitti and others to do that. So there's a lot of work to be done, and that really tight partnership between the mayor and the governor is going to be key to doing that. She will always have my support with whatever she needs, and I'm really excited to work with her because we are very aligned on what we want to see happen in our city.
I mean, one of the things that you have campaigned on is transparency.
Yeah.
And I realize that's something that can play a big role, too, in how you work with any Detroit leaders. I do want to think a bit more deeply about this, though. No more dark money.
Yeah.
No more backroom deals. But, of course, I would be remiss not to mention that Attorney General Dana Nessel, a fellow Democrat, found you violated state campaign finance law by announcing your campaign in a public building. And your transparency portal has been called a failure at every level by the Michigan Campaign Finance Network. How do you reconcile that record with the message?
Well, I mean, I think cherry picking two specific things that don't fully represent my commitment to transparency leaves out the fact that we've transformed the mitten system, as you mentioned, and now it has gone through that transformation, whereas sort of the first week or first month, there were challenges, as there are any time you transform a decades-old antiquated system. And I'm really proud that our campaign finance disclosure system is now working effectively, efficiently, and that we've shown the importance of investing in long-term change, even when at the short-term spot it creates confusion or people are upset with it. And so transforming our campaign finance system has been one of the things I'm very proud of, because it has now then gotten to a place where it's better than ever, and it's going to continue to get better. But beyond that, in addition to being a governor who will voluntarily comply with the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, on day one, I've been proud to not just comply effectively with FOIA and personal disclosure requirements in our state, but been the first agency in the nation to create a FOIA portal, a portal where anyone can go online and see all the responses we've provided on FOIA. That's the type of transparency that we also want to expand to every department in the state. And also say, when it comes to elections, transparency has been our friend, making sure we are auditing our elections, that we're being transparent about posting those audit results so that people can have rightly placed faith in our system. The hallmark of my administration as Secretary of State has been working to increase the transparency of government. And I'm very proud of everything we've done in that vein, and I'll work to continue to do that as governor.
Can I ask you another tough question?
Sure, of course.
We know that Michigan's first hyperscale data center is under construction in Saline Township by Related Digital. I realize your husband is the vice president at Related Companies. That's the parent. He says he's recused himself from Michigan projects. First, where do you stand on data centers?
Well, we've said consistently that the government has to be the guardrail for data centers and for any company that wants to come to Michigan. We have to ensure, while we welcome the increase in well-paying union jobs, we cannot allow those developments to come to Michigan at the expense of our environment. We have a moral responsibility to protect our water, to protect our Great Lakes, to drive down energy costs, and require transparency and community benefits agreements and accountability from not just data centers, anyone who would want to set up shop in one of our communities. So that community engagement, that transparency, that accountability is key. Ensuring, for example, data centers aren't using our fresh water and are held accountable if they do, and ensuring that they have a plan to drive down energy costs and assume any energy increases that they may bring to the state. Those are the types of guardrails we need to put in place if we're going to allow data centers to be built in Michigan.
This is a thorny situation, though. I mean, how do voters know that you'll stand your ground on data centers, ensure that they're not consuming too much water or that they're causing people to pay too much for electricity when your family directly benefits from data center projects?
Well, my family has not directly benefited from any data center project. My husband works on affordable housing nationwide and is not involved in any Michigan projects. my commitment to ensuring government as a guardrail has been, established by my work as Secretary of State, where I've worked to stand up to anyone who would try to interfere with our elections. I'm unafraid to do that, and I'll be unafraid to similarly ensure guardrails here in Michigan are put in place for data centers or any developments. So, because again, the role of a governor and state government is to ensure those protections are in place, to ensure that whether it's a data center or any other type of development, that we are standing on behalf of the people to protect our water, to protect our energy costs and drive them down, and demand transparency and accountability and community engagement from any project who wants to come to Michigan.
I want to end on the idea of affordability, something that I know is central right now to your campaign. I mean, you talk about housing, energy, and healthcare more than democracy. And it seems like that is the shift that people say Democrats need to take, is talking about affordability versus democracy. Polling shows Trump won Michigan in 2024 in part because Democrats were seen as out of touch with the cost of living. What specifically would you do in your first year that Gretchen Whitmer hasn't already done or couldn't do, especially given the division that we see right now in the Michigan legislature?
Well, our affordability agenda, and I'm the only candidate running for governor who has released one, is really focused on driving down the cost of healthcare, making sure it's affordable and accessible for all. That means reforming our Department of Health and Human Services to ensure it is a helping hand in driving down those costs, and also creating a healthcare affordability board, which 12 other states have done that we have not done, that can examine price gouging and ways that we can cap the rising costs of prescription drugs. On housing, we want to focus not just on making it easier to build affordable homes, but also providing more support for homeowners who are first or second time homeowners, and also holding accountable out-of-state developers who would come in, buy up developments and drive up rents 2 or 3 times over the cost that they are now. And on energy costs, making sure we are ending unfair rate increases that are profit-driven and instead working together to modernize our grid. I live in Detroit, and my power's gone out 3 times in the last 6 weeks. My cost for energy has gone up as well. So working to ensure we are investing in the infrastructure changes and the transition to clean energy that we need to invest in to drive down energy costs, while also ending unfair rate hikes that are only profit-driven. That's how we can ensure Michigan is more affordable. And the 3 pillars of my campaign are driving down costs, increasing access to well-paying jobs, which is the other side of that coin of how we make an economy one that where everyone can thrive, and then also being prepared to continue to ensure the safety of our communities, whether it's at the ballot box or in schools. And I think what citizens want, whether it's from Democrats, but any leader in the state, are people who can get things done, people who won't just walk the walk, but will also actually implement the changes that we're talking about.
One last thing, because this is so hot right now, and it's how will you end the rate hikes that you're talking about that are such a burden on so many of us?
Well, I think the Michigan Public Service Commission needs to be reformed to ensure that we have, again, clear guardrails around what rate hikes are acceptable and what are simply profit-driven. And that's something that a lot of governors in other states have looked at doing. We need to do that here in Michigan. But it's part and parcel with also investing in the infrastructure changes that we need to ensure we're modernizing our grid and building the energy grid that will not have outages more than any other in the Midwest, and at the same time investing in that renewable energy, which is the long-term plan to ultimately make energy more affordable. A lot of states are further along that path than we are. I want to catch up to them and pass them so that we can ensure that Michigan is a place where we are seeing our energy costs go down and not up.
Secretary Benson, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson is running for governor as a Democrat. It's the Metro on WDET. Coming up, Detroit entrepreneur Danielle North built a child care center, a college program, and a women's network 11,000 strong. She's also lived an uncomfortable truth about women and power. We'll get into it next. Stay with us.